Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Blix Vika X. It's a foldable city commuter e-bike that can get class 3 speeds, has up to 70 miles of range, and even has some cool new tech like automatic shifting. So, how does it perform in the real world? Well, take a ride and let's go find out. All right, friends, so the Vika X here is a class 3 commuter city bike, and it reaches speeds up to 28 miles an hour. Now, it is priced at $1,699, and it is UL 2849 certified. Now, the frame here comes in one size, and that fits riders from 4'10" up to 6'2". And if you don't like this color, this is the gray. They have 3 other options. You can get it in a burgundy red, kind of a forest green, and a blue color as well, all in the same glossy paint finish. Now, when it comes to weight, this bike weighed in for us at 55.5 pounds. That's with the battery. When you remove this battery, it went down to 48.5, so the battery itself is about 7 pounds. Now, the max payload on this is 312 pounds, and the geometry numbers for this frame, the wheelbase from rear hub to front hub is about 44.5 inches. The step over height, so the height where you can step your foot over the frame, is at 16.6 inches, so nice and low for those of you concerned about stability or balance. And then you have 16.5 inch reach up top, and you can adjust this from around 32 to 42 inches. So quite a bit of adjustability, and that helps dial in that wide range they have on a one size frame from 4'10" up to 6'2". Now, when it comes to fenders and racks and lights, there's also all the things you're gonna wanna see on a commuting bike. So we'll start back here at the rack. We've got a MIC rack in the rear that can hold 55 pounds, and MIC compatible racks, or MIC racks in general, are just nice because there's a whole slew of products that integrate into these, and they lock into this, and they're securable. It's just a really good platform, and it's available everywhere from Amazon to your local bike shop. Any accessories you get for this will be compatible with the MIC system, which is very cool. Now up front, you do have mounting points for another basket or rack in the front, and you also have another set of bosses for a water bottle cage like we have here on the down tube. Now, the fenders on here are PVC plastic, which is kind of nice in my opinion. They make less noise and they can take a bit more of a beating, and they have those on the front and the back. Now, when it comes to wheels and tires, they did go with a 20-inch setup. These are 20-inch black alloy wheels, and they're wrapped in a 20 by 2.4-inch commuter tire that has a pretty standard slick commuter tread with some reflective stripes on the side, and they say it has puncture protection built into it. We've been running this at around 28 PSI. It seems to be a good balance of comfort and still having traction and control without it being squishy or just too hard in general. So that upper 20s feels really good for us. Now, when it comes to lighting, they have pretty much everything a commuter is going to want. You have low beams and high beams up front. So your low beam is a 70 lux and your high beam is a 120 lux. You can be seen and use it to see. They have both high and low beams, which is really nice. It kind of gives you some flexibility for late evening rides or early morning rides, plus that extra layer of safety for visibility. And on that same note, they also have turn signals that you can manage from the control handle up front, and those are integrated into the back of this MIC rear rack that acts as a taillight. Also has a braking feature. When you apply the brakes, it brightens, and also has the turn signals built in. So really everything you're gonna need: high beams, low beams, turn signals, taillights, brake lights. It's really rigged out for commuting, and that's always a nice touch. A lot of times we see commuters, and they don't always have all the things you're gonna want to kind of be riding in and out of traffic, and doing so as safely as you can. So when it comes to the motor and battery on the Vika X, we'll start back here at the motor. It is a rear geared hub motor that has 500 watts of power, and it also has a 55 Newton meter output of torque. So between those 55 Newton meters and the 500 watts on the small form factor bike, I found it to be a really good combination. It feels like it has enough power for anything I was wanting to do on it. And with its class 3 speeds up to 28 miles an hour, it's kind of a good all around get around town package. Now, when it comes to modes of PAS levels, it does have 4. Now, the first 3 are Eco, Tour, and Turbo. Those are the 3 you'd kind of expect to see, kind of a low, medium, and high power delivery. But they also have an auto mode, and auto mode is kind of unique. You put it on auto and you just pedal the bike like you normally would without thinking about your PAS level. And based on how hard and how fast you're spinning the pedals, it will kind of dynamically change between Eco, Tour, and Turbo based on what it thinks you want or what you're trying to do on the bike. And I found it's actually pretty good. I rode quite a bit on this over the last few days, and I never found myself, when I was in auto mode, wishing I was in a different PAS level or feeling like it was too much or too little. It just felt like it was correct all the time, which is a good feature. Now, when we talk about the battery, we've got a 48 volt battery that has 12.8 amp hours, giving us a total of 614.4 watt hours. Now, you can remove this battery. It is fully externally mounted, but it's locked in place. I'll show you how that comes out right now. So you do have a key that comes with the bike. You'll put it in the key slot that's on the left side of the bike, unlock it, and then you'll be able to lift the battery out. Now, this battery weighs about 7 pounds. And the battery and the bike itself has a 2-year warranty should you have any issues with this. And then to put it back, it's pretty simple. You're going to just line up these guide slots, and there's 3 sections of them. So you'll bring it down in this little gap of the frame, line up those 3 slots, and it goes right in without an issue. Now, when it comes to range, they advertised up to 70 miles of range on a single charge. I did my own range test, and in PAS Turbo or level 3, I got 39 miles, and in PAS 1 or Eco mode, I got 64 miles. So all in all, didn't quite meet the 70 miles they estimate, but there's a lot of variables that contribute to that, and 64 miles of range on a single charge in that little battery is a really solid result. And it's also one you could use on a really long trip, or you could commute almost all week, depending on how long your commute is, without having to worry about charging each night. So all in all, when it comes to motor and battery, I think it's a good combo for this size bike, and no complaints in our range test. So let's check out the components. So for the component lineup, Blix opted to use an 8-speed drivetrain from Microshift, and I'm gonna dub it a hybrid electronic shifting system, and I'll get to that portion in just a second. But starting off with the basics, you do have a Microshift 26 8-speed rear derailleur mated to a 13 to 32 tooth rear cassette. Now up front, you've got a 44 tooth chainring with a nice alloy chain guard. You've got 170 millimeter crank arms with flat black plastic pedals that do have a folding feature, so when you fold the bike up, the pedals don't get in the way, and I'll show you that here in a few minutes. Now, when we talk about the electronic shifting, or what I'm calling the hybrid electronic shifting, I call it hybrid because it works in a non-traditional way. So you've got an electronic rocker panel up there like you would see on kind of high-end wireless rear derailleur setups, but it's hardwired into a junction box down below the bottom bracket that's kind of out of sight. And that junction box will then pull a lever or some sort of motor actuation that will pull the cable for the rear derailleur. Now, when you are riding without auto shifting, you just simply hit up and down on the triggers like you would normally on this rocker pad up there, and that'll just shift your gears like normal. But when you go into the app and the app pairs to the bike, you can select a beta feature called auto shifting or e-shifting, and then that's gonna have you set your thresholds for cadence and wattage, so basically how fast and how hard you're pedaling. And then once that's set, when you hit the road, the idea is you just pedal like normal, and regardless of whether you're uphill, downhill, or on flat, it will figure out dynamically during your ride whether or not and when to shift the bike up or down. So you're riding on flats, everything is good. You come to a steep hill, pedaling gets harder and slower, the bike recognizes that and downshifts. You start speeding back up, pedaling faster, the bike recognizes that and shifts back up. So it's kind of a fluid dynamic system. And I will say, in full caveat, it is like they label it a beta mode feature right now. I spoke to the company before doing this shoot today just to kind of get an update on it, because my results when playing with it were pretty varied. I'd say it was close, and oftentimes it would shift at the right time, but then other times it seemed like it was struggling. It couldn't quite figure out. It might jump between a couple gears back and forth on a hill. It just seemed like sometimes it was confused and couldn't quite just dial it in precisely. So like I said, it's close, but not quite fully there. Hence it's in beta mode on the app. Now, the braking system on here is a 2-piston caliper setup. They are hydraulic disc brakes, and they're not any brand off the shelf you'd be thinking of. They're actually Blix in-house branded brakes, so they are doing their own braking systems at this point. Some mixed opinions on the brakes. So the brakes came, and just right out of the box, the brakes wouldn't quite work without the rotor rubbing. I had to have my mechanic take a look at it. Ben, you guys know him at this point. He'll be talking about this bike in just a couple minutes, and he'll give his thoughts on it. So I'll leave that to him. He'll explain it better than I will. But essentially, they did take some playing with to get to work right. Now, I will say, once we got them working, they do have nice modularity, and they have great stopping power, so no complaints on the braking ability. Just this in-house braking brand they have, it just seemed like, at least the one we got for testing, had a little bit of issues that our mechanic had to sort out. But again, I'll let him do that himself. Let's move up to the saddle here. So this saddle is their comfort saddle is what they call it. It's a pretty standard bike saddle. It's a little bit wider than normal with some good cushioning and wide sit bones here. And then it narrows in the front for pedaling, which is nice. Now, no suspension on this bike frame, front or rear. And let's jump up to the cockpit where we have a 640 millimeter black alloy handlebar, a color display in the center, and on each end we have lock-on ergonomic rubber grips. You have a twist throttle on this bike. Over here you have your rocker panel. On the back side is the on and mode button, and on the front side is your up or down shifting buttons, plus your Blix branded hydraulic disc brakes, brake levers. Over here on the right side you have your high beam and low beam switches, as well as your turn signals and your horn. So kind of clean in general. Everything's routed into one fat cable wrap here, and that's sent down to the frame. And then the stem itself, non-adjustable, but that's because it's a folding bike and it needs the ability to telescope up and down based on your fit. And then folding, of course, it needs to be able to fold with the bike. So all in all, clean setup, no issues there. But let's take a closer look at this display and the app itself and kind of shed some context on all these features I've been talking about. All right, so this here is the home screen when you turn on the Vika X. And I've went ahead and added my phone mount just to kind of show you the app as well, but we'll start with the screen itself. Here you can change, or you can see your speed, and then this little bar meter will change power outage or power wattage as you're riding the bike. Up here you've got your PAS indicator, and that kind of cycles through as you go through your PAS modes. So Eco, Tour, and Turbo, and then you have the auto function that will kind of dynamically change the PAS levels as you ride the bike. Down here you've got your remaining mileage left. So this has about 58% battery, giving us 31 miles in auto mode and 0 miles for this specific trip that I turned on the bike. Now, if you want to play with some settings and play with the electronic shifting, you're going to need to go into the app. Now, this is the home screen on the eBike Connect app. Don't use the Blix app. It's actually eBike Connect, which I think Blix is in either partnership or maybe acquiring that, but nonetheless, that will be the app you use. Now, here it shows the bike you have, same remaining mileage on it, your riding mode that you're in, and you can pick between those, or you can use the control pad. Here you've got your e-bike info, and this will tell you about the bike, model, firmware, serial number, odometer, and then your components has the same information as well. So things like your display, controller, and your e-shifting. Now, we did just do a firmware update this morning, one rolled out, and that's why that is grayed out, but it did have a little red bubble and said there's an update available, which is really nice. Now you can back out of that and go into your assist settings. And this is where you can change things like the speed limit. So you could bring it back down to a class 2 if you wanted, 20 miles an hour, confirm that. And when you hear that beep, that means the bike has received it. So we'll do that again, just in case I was talking over it. I'll hit 28. And that beep on the display basically means it confirmed it on the bike. For low battery mode, you have what's called rally mode, so it'll still go as hard as you want, or you can do a range mode, which will conserve more battery for you. And then if we back out here, you can also change the walk assist speed, so how fast when you go into walk mode, the bike travels. Now, if you go back, you can go into E-shift, and this is going to be that electronic shifting we talked about. So here you've got auto shift on. As you can see, it's in beta. And if I go back to manual shift, it will allow me to change my gears based on using the rocker pad. But I'm not turning it, so the derailleur is not able to change gears. But nonetheless, you can pick between regular shifting through the pad or using this auto shift feature. So we'll go back to auto shift. Now here's where you're going to set things like your target power for when it shifts. I've got it at 150. And then you also got your target cadence at 80 RPM, which is just kind of middle of the road where I put it for me. And you can do that based on how you ride the bike. Once you do that, it will then start shifting for you automatically while you're riding the bike. Now they've also got a ride mode, which will take you to tracking your rides, and that will just let you see basically everything that's on your display and a little bit more, things like your kcals, cadence, and then your average speed. Also, you can go into settings, and here you're going to see the version of the app, the privacy policy, and then of course you can change the language of the app. So that rounds it out. All in all, the display is actually a really nice color display. You can see it well in direct sunlight. And then they've got a nice app for the bike, which is always nice to see and doesn't always come with e-bikes at this price point. All right, so let's do a quick folding demonstration and just kind of show you how it goes together and then the kind of cool retention system they have. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse the pedals, which you just simply push on the end and that allows them to kind of fold up. Then the stem here, that will come down. Then you have your center latch, which is kind of the main part of the folding. And then you can bring the wheels and tires together. Now, one cool thing about this, I'm gonna move the kickstand, is they have magnets built into the front hubs, and those two magnets are now touching, so the wheel hubs come together and secure each other with magnets, which makes it really nice because the bike doesn't keep swinging back open, and then you can kind of just navigate it as you need to. Now, the dimensions on this folded up are 36 by 21 by 28.5, and all in all, it's pretty simple. I really like seeing the magnets that hold it together, and it's a pretty compact, quick process, as you can see. So to put it back together, we'll kind of just reverse that process. I'm gonna hold the tires, open up the frame, make sure we get the latch in place, bring up the handlebar, bring up the latch for it, and flip out the pedals. And really, that's it. All right, guys, we're out here on the Blix Vika X. And I've currently got an auto PAS and auto shifting. So right now it's in a setting where the auto PAS is just gonna change based on how I'm pedaling. So I don't need to worry about PAS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that type of thing. And on the other end in the drivetrain, the shifting will use my cadence of power to try to determine which gear it's in. So it's currently in 6th gear, going 10 miles an hour. Let's play with this auto shifting for a bit and see. I've got a little bit of a decline coming up here, so my cadence should pick up. Let's see if that changes anything for shifting. There it goes right there. So it's just changed to 7th gear and 8th gear, which is nice. That's pretty spot on. And we'll see as I come back up here if anything changes with this incline. I'm trying to be pretty consistent with my pedaling. So I'm slowing down. It hasn't figured it. Oh, there it goes right there. 7th gear. 7th gear still. There it goes. 6th gear. So now we're speeding back up. Speed's picking up. My cadence picking up a little bit. See what it does. It's staying in 6th gear. There it goes. It just changed to 7th gear. And I'd like to see one more as we pick up speed, see if it'll figure that out. And there it goes, so 8th gear. So it's trying and it's close. It's just not quite dialed in, but I don't think it's bad. It'll be interesting with the over-the-air updates to see how this improves, especially once they gather more user feedback, because this hasn't even been released yet. And as they get a lot more feedback and diagnostics, they'll be able to roll out some updates that should really dial this in. But anyway, when you're riding this bike, it's pretty straight up. Your seating position is just your posture straight upright, like you're sitting in a chair, and your hands are just kind of flat out, resting on these handlebars. And I don't know if you can hear it, but it keeps just shifting on a flat ground right now between 8th gear and 7th gear. Now that could be my power and cadence. It's probably just having a hard time figuring it out, but you can see why from just an everyday riding standpoint, you'd want to see that dialed in a little bit more. Now, so because of that, let's go, hopefully you can see the app. I'm going to go back out and change the shifting back to manual. And that will let us, so we'll go, so you see it says auto shift beta. Let's put it back to manual shift. And so now I should be able to use the rocker panel here and just shift gears as needed. So let's get under this little overpass and then I'll show you those gears. So I hit it once and it shifted to 7th gear, 6th gear, and so on. But we're too flat to go really low in the gears. And that's actually a good point to bring up. This is a little under geared. I feel that I start to ghost pedal around 19, 20 miles an hour, and that makes it hard to really use the pedaling anything over 20 miles an hour. But let's bump that back up. And I've still got it in auto PAS, so I can feel the PAS kind of adjusting as I change my pedaling. Let's check the throttle here. So let's start at a flat stop. And we'll go 3, 2, actually let's change it to, I'm gonna go to turbo mode and 3, 2, 1. So a pretty subtle start, but it does pick up here pretty well. And for a 500 watt motor, this moves pretty good. And so this is carrying us all the way up past 20. Let's see how high we go here. Yeah, 28. So the good news is about it being a little hard to pedal over 20 miles an hour is you've always got your throttle to kind of take you up and over that 20 to the full 28 miles an hour. Now, I don't know what that does for legality in your areas, but it's definitely something that if you need it, at least you have access to it. So the brakes are their in-house brand, and it's their it's their in-house brand with 180 millimeter rotors and a 2.3 millimeter thick rotor, and 2 piston calipers. So let's get up to speed here a little bit, get up to about 20 again, and then I'm just gonna hit the brakes and see how it feels. I went way over 20. Let me slow down just a bit. All right, 20 here, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, they work fine. There's a little bit of modularity in these brakes that you can kind of play with as you're stopping. I mean, all in all, they're hydraulic disc brakes, 2 piston calipers. I've seen so many brands come and go, not come and go, but just so many types of brands, from big name brands to unbranded to in-house brands like this. And generally speaking, on a 2 piston setup, if they're not like performance driven brakes like a downhill MTB or something that needs really specific performance oriented braking, all these brakes seem to really do fine. And I had no trouble stopping from a fast pace. I mean, they stop when you need it, and that's all you can ask for on a bike. Now, as far as like maybe internal parts for the lever, if you had something go wrong, that now you might be in a place where it's a little harder to get that serviced or dealt with. But all in all, it feels fine. Here's a little incline. I think it's at 8% or 9%. And so I just picked up my pedaling pace just a bit. And with that torque sensor, it had no problem getting up. Didn't even lose speed at all, which is nice. So, being folding and small like this is a good bike for somebody who wants to pack it up and take it on a trip, attach it to their RV, or maybe you just live downtown in an urban area and you need to be able to fold up your bike and bring it on an elevator or just secure it for the night. This is a really solid option. I'm looking forward to the updates on this shifting because I think it's really going to help make this a really kind of just interesting bike for the price point. You don't really see automatic shifting too often at this price. So it's kind of nice to see that. Anyway, this thing has been really kind of just easy to ride. It's kind of an effortless ride. And all in all, it's been solid. So let's go talk to Ben, get his thoughts on it from a mechanic standpoint. And then we'll wrap this up. All right, guys. Hey, welcome back. This is where we chat with Ben, our in-house mechanic who's got a lot of experience working on bikes, and he just kind of shares his thoughts. And today it's going to be on this Vika X. Now, Ben, I'm going to jump out of the way and let you do your thing, but one of our sponsors of the channel is Feedback Sports, and if you guys want to check out their stands or their toolkits, I'll leave a link down below in the description. And Ben, just kick it off with what you like about the Vika X.
All right, thanks, Mike. This one's a pretty easy one to talk about. The first thing that I really liked about this one when it came out of the box was the nice, simple frame design. That just looks nice to me. And then secondly, once test ridden, what I really liked about it is how little the frame seemed to flex. You get a bike like this with only one main tube and a clamp to fold. Sometimes these bikes will seem to flex a little bit more than others. This one seemed really solid. I was surprised. I like that quite a bit. I do comment about this one often enough, so I'd love to point it out when I see it. So this is an oversized bottom bracket spindle, and what that means for you as the rider is a couple of things. For this bike in particular, when you do stand up off the saddle and put your weight on the pedals, it's going to feel a lot more solid. Second part about that is because it's a folder, and when you're transporting the bike, if the pedal sustains any kind of an impact, it's not going to do anything to the spindle. It won't bend, it won't come out of place, anything. So, and I really like seeing that on this bike. The utility rack in the back, super burly. This is a folder bike, which means it's utility based. So you're going to be able to put a lot of weight. It's got a great wide platform on it. As somebody who's commuted a lot in life, I really like the rack, how robust it is, the design, everything. Moving back up to the front again, the shifter is very unique on this bike. It's an electronic and cable actuated. I was a little skeptical about this system at first, but when this is on manual shift mode, this thing works awesome. It's simple, it's out of the way, it works great. I was just really impressed by the overall usability about that. Two last things to point out that I like about this bike is the micro adjust seat post. It's a 2-bolt style. These are some of the best you're ever going to get because they really anchor the seat in well. Easy to adjust, get the exact angle that you like on it. And then lastly, the fenders, when they put plastic fenders on bikes, especially as a folder, they're going to get hit. They're going to take some impacts, and plastic fenders, you could do this all day long. And because they're not metal, they don't stay bent or dented. So I really like that as well.
Nice. So what kind of things would you improve on this bike?
Great question. And there's only really a couple, Mike, that I'll hit on with this one. I like so much about it, it had to be picky. So with that, I'll just point out that it might be a good idea to use a zinc coated chain on this. And again, with other bikes, I've pointed out that it just resists corrosion and it seems to hold lubrication better. I will always like that. Then with the brakes, Blix has now gone in-house and created their own hydraulic brakes. Okay, the front one seems to feel great, but the rear, it's got an adjustment on it that's really hard to make so it doesn't rub. So the way that this is what I would recommend is that they just go to a Tecto brake, because the way these work is if the brake works, it rubs, causes friction. If the brake doesn't rub, it doesn't work. So I think that there can be a little bit of engineering or some sort of modification, probably more to the caliper than the lever. But for a bike like this, it would be nice if it had a more dependable brake system, and that can come from Tektro, TRP, SRAM, Shimano, whomever. I really wish that they would stick to more of a name brand in this case. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Awesome, Ben. Once again, man, thank you for your thoughts on this bike.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, guys, so there you go, the new Blix Vika X. So all in all, a really sweet commuter, folds up nice and tight. I really like the way the magnets come together and hold it like you guys saw. Several folders I've tried in the past, they usually swing open or I'm left to find a strap or something, so that's really cool. Other than that, nearly 70 miles of range, Class 3 speeds, some cool new tech that's kind of still under development, but at least with over-the-air updates and app connectivity, it's something that you don't need to take to a service center or worry about sending back or getting a new part. It'll just strictly be sent through an over-the-air update, and as they get more feedback, I think that electronic shifting will just get better and better. If I missed anything, drop a comment down below and let me know. If you guys haven't done so already and you're feeling generous, give us a like and subscribe. And until the next review, I'll see you guys out on the trail.